Thank you for joining us for this week's message at Crosswind Church. If you have any questions about this message or about Crosswind Church, please visit us at www.crosswindchurch.net, or you can email us at info@crosswindchurch.net.
Listen, if you're here today and it's your first time, in fact, even if you're here today and you've been around for a while, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, it may be a little confusing what's going on. It may be a little weird because we're going to be talking about this phrase, be rich and generosity, quite a bit. And it's new to you. I get it because we've only been talking about it from the stage for a couple weeks. But for your elders and for your staff, this is something that we've been looking at and talking about and praying for and preparing for almost 12 months. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So if you're a first-time guest to show up and you see the signs that say be rich and there's balloons everywhere and confetti out in the parking lot and all those things, I imagine that you probably went, well, this is just what I expected, right? They're just going to ask me for all my money and it's just what I want. It's what I expected from the church. That's exactly right. Well, it's not that. And maybe you're going, well, I've been around the church world for a little while, and Jerry's finally going to jump off the heretical cliff and tell us that we just trust our life with Jesus and name it and claim it. We can just have whatever it is we want. Jesus will make us healthy, wealthy, wise, and beautiful. It's not that either. Be rich is something bigger than that. And so I want to take some time today and explain to you kind of where Be Rich came from, how we came to be a part of it, and what our goals are for the next few weeks, and we'll look at some passage of scripture along the way. Be Rich is a program that was started by North Point Community Church in Alpharetta, Georgia, just north of Atlanta, about 11 years ago or so. And it was kind of birthed out of this idea. We want to partner with people out of the community and kind of engage with them and just unleash a wave of generosity out of the communities. But for Crosswind Church, Be Rich didn't begin 11 years ago. For Crosswind, Be Rich is really embedded in the DNA of who we were. And it was a DNA that we tried to resurrect a few years ago. I can remember sitting around with our elders right when I came to be pastor here, and we were asking, who was it that Crosswind was, and what was it we wanted Crosswind to represent in our community. And we asked a question. It was a very important question for kind of the entire identity of who Crosswind was. It was this. We said, if Crosswind Church were to cease to exist, would our community miss us? And if the answer to that question is no, then maybe we've got some work to do. And Crosswind was way involved already in the community. We were already doing things. We just felt like it was time to do some more. We felt like maybe it was time to stop talking about getting involved and time to actually start getting involved and going and doing something. And so we looked around our community as a board of elders, as your staff. We looked around the community and we said, what are the needs? What are the things that we see? And we saw poverty. We saw people that struggled to make their ends meet. People that needed help with rent and bills. We saw hunger. That blew me away. People that didn't have enough food to eat, and kids that were going home for the weekend without any food to eat. We saw drugs as an issue, and the need for rehabilitation facilities and organizations kind of come alongside folks and help. We saw single moms trying to raise kids on their own and dealing with how do I figure out childcare with school and holding down a job and how difficult that can be. We saw grandparents raising kids, and we started looking. We saw all of these things that just kind of came to light. Racial disparity, we saw that, and we kind of looked around and we said, but there was something else that we saw. And this is really neat. We saw some really cool organizations that already existed in Northwest Tennessee. We saw churches that already had created food pantries. And we saw Helping Hands that was already helping people pay bills and had a thrift store. And we saw organizations spring up like Celebrate Recovery to help people as they deal with recovering from addictions of all kinds, all the repercussions of that. We saw the Boys and Girls Club that was helping with children. And we saw a backpack program that already existed in Orion County school systems that were sending food home with kids over the weekend. And we saw that was Pilgrim's Rest Missionary Baptist Church, what later would become Trudy's Cafe, that fed hundreds of children's meals over the summertime. We saw all of this. And as a board of elders, we came back and kind of looked at these organizations, and we made a really important decision. The decision that your elders made was this. We want to be a partner, not a competitor. We want to be a partner, not a competitor. We don't have space at our church. If you notice, we just keep having babies. There's no space to put anybody in here. We don't have space to house a food pantry. So what if we just We from time to time gave a bunch of food to the food pantry and helped them go further, faster. We don't have time to house or the staff to house an after-school program. So what if we just tried to partner with the Boys and Girls Club of America that already exists, right? But we don't need to start a backpack program for the kids because there already is one. What if we just partnered with them? And so out of that kind of decision that was made, Kyle Phillips, who's our elder for community involvement, and I, we began to contact some of these great organizations. We began to sit down with them. Everybody from crisis pregnancy centers to domestic violence centers that are here in town that you don't even know about because they're secret, right? Like they're amazing organizations. And we sat down with them and we kind of said, here, we asked them some questions. We didn't really know what we're doing. We just kind of said, hey, like if people could volunteer here, could they? Well, yeah, they could. Okay, well, what would they do? We wrote it all down. If they wanted to get in touch with you, if one of our groups wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do it? And so we wrote down all of that information, and out of that was birthed something that we've talked about now for about a year called I Am Crosswind. And you can go to IamCrosswind.com and you can see about 22 or so different partners that we've partnered with, that we've talked to, that we've vetted, and we know doing good work, okay, sitting with the elderly or helping kids that are in crisis. And we encourage our home groups to go and to pick an organization and go and volunteer and serve. Some of them, we actually at Crosswind budget money to go give to them every month. We give money to some of them every month so that they can continue to do their job and we can just be a part of helping them along the way rather than creating another program that competes with something that they're already doing really, really well. Okay? It just seemed to make sense to us. And so last year, we had just launched IamCrosswind.com, and your staff was sitting around a table at the University of Tennessee Martin, and we were asking ourselves the question, what is it that God wants Crosswind to hear in 2017? And it was there around that table that we all agreed, be rich is something that we need to be a part of. Be rich is something that we need to do. We've talked a lot about being generous in our community. It's time to start talking. It's time to start actually doing a little bit more. And so even though it's new to you, and even though you're just now figuring it out, and even though you're just putting it together, it's something that we've been talking about for almost 12 months. And so for the next 4 weeks, starting this week, we're going to have different call to actions every week. And we're going to collect a bunch of money and then give 100% of it away. And we're going to unleash our volunteers out into the community to go and to serve and to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And then we're going to turn around and love on people in our community, most of whom never get loved on just because. I'll tell you more about that when we kind of move to the end. But I wanted to tell you kind of what this was born out of, what this idea was born out of. And it was born out of a letter that a guy named Paul wrote to a man named Timothy. Most of Paul's letters that he wrote, that make up about half the New Testament, were written to churches like this one. But this particular letter was written to an individual, to a young man named Timothy. We know he was young. And Timothy was going through some difficulty trying to pastor the church as a young pastor. Okay? And so Timothy is getting some advice from Paul. And as Paul is wrapping up the letter, Paul says this to Timothy. Beginning in verse 17 of chapter 6, 1 Timothy. That's what he says. All the words are on the screen if you want to follow along with me. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Now, if you're like me, when you read that, okay, you read that and you read the phrase, command those who are rich in this present world, and immediately you stop listening because you are not rich. You know some rich people, but you are not in that category. So there's this doesn't apply to me. I don't have to listen to this. I can just move right on to 2 Timothy and pick up with something else that Paul is talking about. But here's what we know. And come on, we know this. We've talked about this before. Like, on the world's standards, you are rich. And so I got to think that I could stand up here and I could try to convince you of it. I could stand up here and I could say that if you make $32,400 annually, you are in the top 1% of wage earners in the world. And I'd be right. I can tell you that if you drive down Woodford Avenue this afternoon, you will drive past more food than some people in our world will see in their entire life. And I'd be right. And I can tell you that if you drove your car to the church today, and after church you're going to get in your car and drive it home, and you're going to press a button and open up the door to a house that's attached to your house that your car gets to live in. And you pull that car into its house, and it's parked next to another car that is also in the house that's connected to your house that your cars live in. I can tell you, if you have two cars in a house that live in, maybe even you can open up the garage door, but you can't pull your car in because you have so much stuff that it's actually taking up the space in your car's house, so your car doesn't get to live in the house anymore. Come on. I can tell you that means you're wealthy. That means you're rich. That means you got some extra. And I would be right. But here's why I'm not going to do that. It's because you don't feel rich, do you? You see, you can be told you're the top 1% of wage earners, but at the end of the day, you can't keep up with the Joneses, you can't keep up with the person down the street, and you don't have the new whatever or extra whatever, and you feel like you're not rich. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at what Paul has to say to the rich people through Timothy. And we're gonna pretend and anticipate. Here's what we're going to anticipate. We're going to anticipate that one day you might actually be rich, okay? And I want you to practice what it is to be rich, so that when you become rich, if you become rich, you'll be a good rich person. That's what I want you to do. Because here's what we know. The more people make, the less percentage-wise of their income they give away to churches and charities. Okay? So most of the rich people aren't very good rich people. So I just want you to be a good rich person. We'll just practice that, okay? So this is what he says starting out. He goes, command those who are rich in this present age, which is not us yet, but one day it might be. So we're going to listen to what he has to say. Command those not to put their hope in these riches, which are so fleeting, they can go away, that sort of stuff. But instead, to put their hope in God. And here's a great picture that he gives us. Who so generously gives us all of these things to enjoy. This is what he's saying. Listen, one thing that I know about all of your stuff and all of my stuff, this is important, is that one day all of your stuff and all of my stuff will belong to someone else. I know that, right? I know that everything that I own, everything that you own, one day we will no longer own it, right? We know that to be true. I remember my daughters started playing board games and started getting good at board games, and we really should play more board games. I asked Jody the first service to put that on the calendar, because that's how we communicate everything. We play more board games. It's on the calendar. Okay. And I can remember my girls, their game that they kind of like to play now with us is Monopoly. And we've been playing it for a year or so, and they'll pull out the Monopoly board and we'll pass out all the money. And my girls are like ruthless when it comes to that. Like it's remarkable how ruthless that they are. They want to buy up property, they want to hoard it for themselves, they want to collect more and more money. And it may have happened a couple times where Abby or Emma has gotten the best of me and or Jody playing Monopoly, and they've driven us into bankruptcy, or at the very least, they've driven us into not having a whole lot of money. I can remember one particular time when I was playing with Abby, and it was just the two of us, and she was beating me pretty good. She had a big stack of hundreds and 500s, and I was down to like the ones and fives and tens. You remember what that was like? And to be honest with you, I just had about enough of losing to a 9-year-old, and so once we'd been playing for a while, and you know how Monopoly does. Like Monopoly drags on and on and on and on sometimes until you. So what I said to Abigail was, I said, Abby, you win. Congratulations. You've won. It's time to clean up the game. She goes, oh, no, Daddy, we can't clean up the game. And I was like, why can we not clean up the game, baby? And she said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to leave everything set up right here, just like it is. And I'll have all my money, and you have all your money, and when you want to play again, we'll come right back, and we'll pick up right here where we left off. She's brilliant. And I said to her, no, baby, that's not how the game works. See, when the game is over, we put all the money and all the hotels and all the houses, all the property goes back in the box. So that when we play again the next time, the money gets distributed differently. There's a little lesson. Someday our game is going to be over. Someday our game of life is going to be over. And when it's over, all of our stuff, all the toys get put back in the box. This is what Paul wants us to understand. The stuff that you're putting your hope in. It's so easy to put your hope in. That stuff isn't going to last. By the way, you didn't get it. God gave it to you. So what I want you to do is I want you to put your hope in God who's giving you those things, because He's never going to go away. In fact, this is just a reiteration of what Jesus said in His Sermon on the Mount. He says, store up treasure in heaven, not on earth. Because on earth, moth and rust destroy, and thieves break in and steal. But in heaven, that is eternal. That will never go away. So put your hope there rather than riches. And it's so easy to do, especially when you've got extra. Especially when you got a little more, because you feel comfortable when your bank account's fat. When the fridge is full of clothes. I hope the fridge is full of clothes. Yeah, sometimes you skip going. The fridge is full of food. The closet's full of clothes. Come on. It's easy to put your hope in that. Paul says, don't do that. Don't do that. Instead, this is what he says. Look at the next verse. Verse 18. He says, command them, that's the rich, to do good, to be rich, that's where we get the phrase for this entire campaign, to be rich in good deeds and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of life that is truly life. You see, here's the thing that the lie that we believe sometimes, that if I get enough in my bank account, if I get enough toys, if I get enough stuff, then somehow my life is going to be fulfilled and I'm going to have everything I want and I'm really going to experience life, okay? What Paul wants Timothy to understand is all that stuff is cool and good, and I'm going to give you a lot of that stuff, but that is not what real life is about. That is not what true life is about. In fact, if you want to experience true life, the life that is truly life, then what you've got to do is you've got to be generous, willing to share, and willing to give some of your stuff away, and willing to give some of your time. That's it. Be rich in good works. Be generous and willing to share. We sometimes say it like this at Crosswind. When you have extra, don't assume it's free. When you have a little bit of extra money, don't assume that's for you. When you have a little bit of extra time, don't assume it's all for you. When you have a little bit extra of whatever, don't assume it's all for you. I can remember a church I was serving at. I had a couple families in our church that were really kind of struggling financially. They were, moving money around to make ends meet and doing side jobs and extra jobs. I can remember one Sunday in between services, I had this guy walk in. He lays tile for a living. That's what he did. One of my good friends. He had a wad of 20s in his hand. It amounted to about $300. And I knew his family situation, what was going on with him financially, and it was just a very good situation, and blended family, and he was working his tail off, hard manual labor, trying to make that happen. He walked in my office with this $300 in 20s, and he said, Jeremy, I did this side job, and we got a little bit of extra money. Here it is. And I want you to give it to, and then he named another family in our church that was struggling financially. And his pastor, his spiritual advisor, looked at him and went, man, you don't need to do that. Come on. Really? Like, you're in need. Like, you need this money, right? Like this is something, hang on to that. Like, thank God for that blessing. You got some extra. He was like, no, you don't understand. Our bills are all made for this month. This is genuinely extra. Our budget is good right now. This is genuinely extra. And I'm convinced that just because I have extra, it's not necessarily for me. I'm convinced that this guy needs it. And so he hands me $300 that his family could have really used to give to somebody else. That is what being rich is all about. It's about doing for others, right? Who can't do for themselves. Paul says, then you'll really take hold of life. It's true life. Then you'll truly understand. You want to know what's needed? The early church understood this. The early church understood this really well. In fact, they were so characterized by their generosity that there were people who saw the Christian and wanted to be a part of what they were doing and wanted to be around them just because they were so generous. And that was some of the first way that somebody kind of found out, some people kind of found out about people who followed their faith. And the reason that they understood this, the reason they did this, is because they actually listened to a teaching that Jesus gave and they applied it to their life. They actually did what Jesus said. I want to read you a passage of Scripture that I think meant something to this early church. It's found in the Gospel of Luke, and it's found in chapter 6. In this passage, Jesus is teaching in one of his most famous sermons, and he starts talking at some point about loving your enemies. And right in the middle of this enemies discourse, he comes up with verse 32. He says this, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those whom you expect repayment, what credit is that from you? Even sinners lead to sinners expecting to be repaid in full. What Jesus is explaining, maybe something that we lose just a little bit, because it was a big deal in the Roman world, and even though it still exists today, it's maybe a little bit harder for us to kind of see, at least until we point it out. You see, in the ancient world, in the Roman Empire, giving and that sort of thing, giving and generosity was a part of their culture. That they were known for that, and for giving and helping and that sort of thing. But they had a word for it. It's called liberalitas. And this implied that I'm going to give to you with the hope that one day you're going to return the favor. It's I'm going to give to you, and then someday when I need a little bit of help, I'm going to ask that you help me because I've already helped you, right? So as a result, in the Roman world, politicians and people that were very wealthy, it was easy for them to get a loan. It was easy for them to get a little bit of generosity given to them because everyone knew that they could repay it, would repay it, and were willing to maybe even do something a little bit greater back. There was much of a debt-debtor kind of relationship that occurred with this kind of giving. As a result, the poor, the impoverished, those that couldn't give back, they oftentimes had difficulty getting the help that they needed because they had nothing to offer back. Jesus says, listen, anybody can do that. Anybody can give and expect something back. Anybody can show that kind of generosity. He says even sinners do that. What that means is you don't even need Jesus to do that. You don't even need the love of God to do that. That's just a part of our culture. That's just what we do. It's what we do in our society today too, isn't it? That's what bankers do. You go into a bank, you ask for a loan, they give you a loan, but they don't like it if you don't pay that back with interest. And they'll come get your car or your house or whatever it is you took the loan for, right? It's what insurance companies do. You pay premiums again and again and again, and then when something happens and you file a claim, then their job is to come and to fix it or to pay back something that you've paid in to them. Politicians work this way. Hollywood a lot of times works this way. We don't have to work too hard. In fact, upstairs, I meant to mention this in the first service. Upstairs, we were praying right before the service. In the first service, Matt is getting ready to go on a bike ride, and all the proceeds from the bike ride are going to go to Myanmar. Is that Myanmar? I'm sorry, I'm from Tennessee, Myanmar, whatever. And he was saying up there, he didn't know I was going to talk about this, but he was saying that one of the biggest problems they have over there are loan sharks. That give money and then expect exorbitant amounts in return, right? And so as a result, people have trouble starting business, they have trouble maintaining their life and doing those things and so the money that's being raised is going to actually teach people how to take out loans and how to do things correctly and in a way where they're not being taken advantage of because that's just a part of our culture. And that was a part of the Roman culture that Jesus was addressing in Luke chapter 6. And the thing that kind of bothers me a little bit, just a little bit, is that if we're not careful, that same culture will find its way into the church. And in a lot of ways has. I told you all that growing up, we had a gym across the street from our church. And I've even told you that there's a group of adults that a couple times in my life wanted to open up the gym for people from the community. We were a downtown church. They wanted the community to come and to play ball in the gym. And I even told you that in some cases, weeks after we had opened it up, every Tuesday night, hundreds of kids are showing up at our gym. And so they made the rule. You can come play ball on Tuesday night if you come back to youth Bible study on Wednesday. Right? That was it. That was it. And if you came on Tuesday night to play ball and then didn't show up on Wednesday and they took roll, then you couldn't come play ball next week. Now, my argument is not whether that's appropriate or not appropriate. That's not my argument. My argument is that's liberalitas. Right? I'm going to give something to you, and I'm going to expect something in return. Maybe it's appropriate, maybe it isn't. But even non-Christians do that. Even non-Christians get that. I can remember when I was in seminary, I had an opportunity to go and serve at a homeless meal down in downtown Fort Worth. There's a big church and a big homeless ministry down there. And so we went down. I was telling Jody, I don't remember if I was there to speak or if I was there to serve food or both. I don't really remember, but I remember being there. And part of their program was this. They would bring them all in, all the homeless people from the street, and they would put them at tables. And the food is behind them, and it's warm, and you can smell it, right? And while they're sitting at the table, before they let them eat, they had to sit through some seminary student like myself giving some kind of devotion. And here's what it was. Whether that's appropriate, whether it's not appropriate, it's not my argument. What I want you to understand is that's liberalitas. That is, we're going to do something for you. We're going to feed you. If and only if you sit through this first. You with me? Sometimes that's appropriate, but what Jesus is saying is that is not what is going to characterize the generosity of the church. That is not what's going to separate you from the rest of society. Right? It's going to have to be something different. And look what Jesus says. Not my words, Jesus. Verse 35, he says this, "But love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back." Learn to give to somebody with no strings. Just because. We're just going to do it just because. The Latin word that describes this is not liberalitas, it's actually caritas. It's the word that we get the word charity from. You understand, charity means I'm going to give something to somebody without expecting anything in return. I'm going to give something to them even though they have nothing to give to me in return. You want to know what's interesting? For those of you that grew up in church, maybe you grew up reading the King James Bible, you get to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, which we all know if we've been in church for a while is the love chapter, right? It's a chapter that's read incorrectly at a lot of weddings. That's neither here nor there, right? It's love is patient, love is kind. Maybe you've heard that. The little Greek word that we translate in English, love, is the word agape. It literally means love. But in 1611, when King James and his translators, King James wasn't really part of it. He just put his name on it. But when his translators got together, right, to figure out how they're going to translate that little word agape in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, they didn't use the word love. You know what word they used? Charity. In fact, some of you may have grown up learning the last verse of that chapter, but these three remain, faith, hope, and charity, but the greatest of these is charity. And the reason they did that is when they got to love, they said, we just can't put love there because I don't think that encompasses what the writer here is trying to really say. I don't think that encompasses what the passage is trying to get off. The love that he's talking about is a love that's not self-serving or self-seeking. It's a love where I'm radically committed to the advancement and the well-being of the other, regardless of what they can give to me. That's what chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians is about. And what does that love look like? That self-serving kind of love where I can't get anything in return. It doesn't matter if I get anything in return. Oh, that looks a lot like charity. That looks a lot like caritas. All right? So let's just use that word because it helps us explain what it is that they're really, really getting at. Here's the thing I want you to get. This is so cool. The early church understood this, knew this, and practiced this, and it sent ripples through the community that they were in. So in the 3rd century, the late 200s AD, there's a young man who was born. His name is Pachomius. And he lived in northern Egypt. And at this particular time, there was turmoil in the Roman Empire. Constantine was around. He was not yet the emperor. There was civil war going on all over the place. At this point in time, Constantine had not issued the Edict of Milan legalizing Christianity, so many Christian churches were still underground when Pachomius was born. And it wasn't legal. It wasn't the national religion of the Roman Empire at this point in time. Pachomius is born, and his parents are completely atheistic. They're pagan. They have nothing to do with Christianity or any kind of belief system. And because there was civil war and warring going on all over the place, it was not uncommon for Roman soldiers to go through towns and collect young men to be a part of the army against their will. It was a little bit like the draft, only a little bit more like mean, okay? And so we would take them and we would load them up on ships. And Pachomius was loaded up on a ship as a young man, and he was shipped down the Nile River to a city called Thebes. And there he was placed in jail, because that's where they would harbor and hold these kids, these young men, until it was time for them to go to war, until it was time for them to be trained. They would put them in this prison so they wouldn't run away, and they just didn't have any place to put them. But because there was so much going on, it was easy for the guards, for the Romans, they put them there to forget about them. We're not worried about them. As a result, many of the people that were stuck in those prisons died from starvation or exposure to the elements. Pachomius tells the story. He says that there was a group of people, and they would come by every day with bread, bits of food, push them through the bars to us, and we would take them. And because of that, we were able to survive and we were able to live. And it blew Pachomius' mind because that was not the way people gave in the Roman Empire. They weren't asking anything back. These prisoners couldn't do anything for them. There was no way that the prisoners could repay this group of people that was bringing them food. And so Pachomius began to ask, this is such abnormal behavior in the culture. Who are these people? And before long he found out some people called them Christian. Some called them Galileans because the guy they followed was from Galilee. They called themselves sometimes followers of the way. They worshiped this guy named Jesus, who they think died and rose from the dead. That's pretty weird. Pachomius vowed while in jail that if he ever got out of jail, he was going to find a group of Christians and talk to them about why they were so generous. Talk to them about why they were willing to give caritas, not expecting anything in return. Pachomius was released from jail without ever having to fight in a battle. And sure enough, he made good on his vow. He went and found a group of Christians, and there they told him the reason why we do what we do is because Jesus has commanded us to do it, and Jesus has set us free from the law and sin, and we just want to be generous. And so Pachomius says, I want some of that, and gives his life to Jesus, and he becomes a monk, devoting his life to God. And while a monk, he started looking around at other monks, and he realized that there were some monks that were good at some things, and other monks that were good at other things, and maybe it'd be better if we all lived together in a community and we could spread the responsibility amongst everybody. And new believers that are just coming in, they can spend their time in prayer and scripture and seeking spiritual disciplines. And we can just kind of take care of them until they're ready to come in and do some work. And he laid the outline, the foundation for communal living amongst the monastics. For communal living in convents for nuns. All because of Pachomius. And now in the church, he's known as Saint Pachomius. Here's the thing I want you to realize. Pachomius doesn't come to faith because he was convinced of people's theology. Pachomius doesn't become a Christian and doesn't come to faith because he had all his questions answered. Pachomius becomes interested in pursuing Christ because he witnessed the abnormal generosity of Christians. And he couldn't wrap his head around it. And he had to go find out more. That is what drove Pachomius to Jesus. The generosity of the early church sent waves out of the community. So much so that the community was thankful that they were there. And so for the next 4 weeks, we want to unleash a wave of generosity in our community. This next week, these next few weeks are going to be so important to us as a church. Because the time has come for us to stop talking about making a difference in our community and actually start making a difference in our community. And our goal is that through Be Rich, we would ignite a spark inside of you that would continue long after Be Rich 2017 is over. That will carry you right into Be Rich 2018, right? Which we hope to do next year. And so for the next 3 weeks, we're going to have specific calls to action. That's what we're calling. We're doing one this week. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But our calls to action are right here. We've got it on the screen. This is give, serve, and love. This is what it is. So what we're going to do is we want to collect a bunch of money through our Be Rich campaign, and then what we want to do is we want to give it away. All of them. 100%. To some great organizations, maybe that we've already partnered with, that we've already vetted, we already know they're doing good work, and we just want to collect a ton of money and just give it away. 100% of the money that's given to Be Rich is going to go out. We're not asking you to give to our church, we're going to ask you to give through our church. Now, here's where you need to help me do something. This is between us, okay? So help me. The nonprofit organizations, we're going to give to 3. We'll tell you about it next week. The nonprofit organizations that we're going to give to, they don't know that. Shh. Okay? Right, they don't know that. They didn't ask for the money. They don't know that we're going to try to give them money, or how much we're going to try to give them. They have no idea. Think about this. In a couple of weeks, some of you are going to go with me. We're going to walk into offices of directors of some organizations in and around Northwest Tennessee. They're not all in Union City or Bryan County. We're going to walk to their office and we're going to put a check that's not for hundreds of dollars, but a check that's for thousands of dollars in their hand and go, we love you, God loves you, do some good work with that, we're out, right? That's it. Can you imagine how cool that's going to be? Like, I am fired up about that. We want to collect a whole bunch of money and just give it away. We want to unleash you into our community to go serve. To go to some of these great organizations that are doing great work and go, I want to go and I want to play bingo with the people at the senior center. I want to go and I want to paint fingernails of the women at the nursing home. And I want to go and I want to pack bags for the backpack program, wherever it is. I'm going to go find a place where I can volunteer. We're asking all of our home groups to go and to serve somewhere in the weeks that are ahead. We'll tell you about that when we serve call to action. But can you imagine what our community looks like if 300 people go out in the community and put in 1 hour of service? What does it look like for 300 hours? Can you imagine what if it were 600? I'm telling you, that helps an organization go farther, faster. That helps them accomplish more than they ever could possibly. I can't even tell you how excited I am about it. The third call to action is love. The third call to action is, you know what we're going to do? We're going to actually spend some time loving on people in our community that don't get loved on very often. And I'll tell you one thing we're going to do. This little side note, we also have to keep this quiet, okay? Just between us. We are going to collect food, starting that week, for the backpack program in Union City. You know why Union City and not Obion County? Because we've already raised the money to fund the Obion County backpack program for the year. Okay? That's partner churches have done that, right? So we're going to collect a whole bunch of food and we're going to give it to the backpack program in Union City. And don't tell Kristen Miles this, okay? But I want to collect so much food that Kristen has to find another closet to store it in because there's not enough room in the one she's got right now. All right? I want us to just unleash a tidal wave of love, a tidal wave of service, and a tidal wave of giving out in our community and watch the ripples as God loves on this community through us. And here's the reason why. Here's the reason why. Jesus tells us, the second half of verse 35, says, then, when you do this, then your reward will be great. And you will be children of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. We can go and pull my journal out of my office right now. When I read that this week, I was studying that this week, and I read that God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. I wrote in my journal, He's talking about me. I'm ungrateful. And I'm wicked. And God showed kindness to me. See, here's why we do this. Because God did that for us. The reason that we give with no strings attached is that God loved us so much that He gave His Son with no strings attached. Here's my grace. Here's my paradise. And what Jesus says here is this. You want to be like God, don't you? Well, yeah. And love is God. Loves. Serve as God. You've heard about the golden rule. We've learned that since we were kids, right? Do to others as you would have them do to you. Well, there's a different rule that's going to drive all 64 of these churches over the next 4 weeks. It's not the golden rule, it's the platinum rule. The platinum rule says, do to others because God has done it for us. Do for others. Not because they can give anything back. Do for others because God has done for us. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what happens in this community if our hearts take hold of this charge? Can you imagine what happens in Northwest Tennessee if our hearts take hold of this charge? And we're not doing it for recognition. We haven't contacted any media. As far as I know, nobody knows about it. That's totally fine. We're not doing it for us. We're doing it for others. Because God has done it for us. So today's call to action is a call to prayer. And it's a call to preparation. And I want you to pray 3 specific things with me this week as we prepare for Be Rich. I want you to pray that God would prepare your heart. See, I was thinking about this when we were singing Oceans. Kevin was Man, singing Oceans a minute ago, he sang a lot. I think he sang all of it. Like, incredible. When Kevin was singing Oceans, we get to that bridge. Spirit, lead me where my faith is without borders, and we walk upon the waters wherever your Spirit lead me. And I think that we sing that, but do we really mean it? Do we really want God to take us there? Because here's the thing, y'all. Like that's frightening. Our feet may fail. That's what we just said. But would you pray that God would prepare your hearts to go to places that you've never been, to serve people that you never thought you'd serve, to dig deeper into your pocketbook and give more than you ever thought you'd give, so that we can bless other people? Would you be willing to pray that God would prepare your heart to do something that you never thought you would do? And that's give without expecting anything in return. Number two, would you pray for our community? Would you pray for our community that God would prepare their hearts? I want nothing more from our community. We say this all the time. I want them to be so blown away by the generosity of Christians that they say things like, their theology is a little weird, I don't know that I buy into it, and I don't know that I want to be a Christian, but man, look at how they love each other. They're so generous. I don't know that I buy into all their theology, but I sure hope my daughter marries one, because look at how they treat their wives. I hope that my son works for one, because look at how they treat their employees. Man, I want to hire a whole bunch of them, because look how faithful they are to do what I ask them to do. I hope my neighborhood is flooded with Christians, because man, they're such good neighbors. Would you pray for our community that they'd be able to see our generosity for what it is? No strings attached love. And then lastly, would you pray that God would move in the heart of one person, 2 people, 12 people, 24 people, who might see the generosity of Christians and go, I'm going to reevaluate this, Jesus said. I'm going to reevaluate this. I want another look at the gospel message. I want to get around some of these people and figure out why it is that they do what they do. And the reason I want you to pray that is this. Because one of those people that might reconsider the gospel may be the pastor that leads your children or your grandchildren to Jesus. He may be the person that sets up the best nonprofit to help little kids after school. And might figure out a way to reconnect families where they're broken. Which this has the power to transform lives and transform our community. Will you begin praying those 3 ways? So that next week when we come, we'll be prepared to do for others as God has done for us. Not because they can give us anything back. Let's pray. God, I'm so thankful for the blessings that you have given us. God, we are indeed rich in many ways. We're rich in our relationship with you because of Jesus. We're rich in our relationship with others because of Jesus. God, we have material possessions and we have extra. Sometimes it's hard to see it. But God, I pray that you would prepare our hearts to be generous. God, I pray that for some of us that means we're going to take a step of faith and do something we've never done before, give more than we've ever done before, give to the point where we have to sacrifice something. God, maybe there's somebody here that's going to say, I'm going to give up my birthday next year for Be Rich. Or I'm going to give up Christmas. Instead of buying me Christmas presents, just give me money, we'll give it to Be Rich. Or hey, I've got an extra vehicle, or I've got an extra whatever, and I'm going to go sell it, and I'm going to give that money so that it can go do some good out in our community. God, I pray that you prepare us to go and to serve. Stop talking about making a difference and actually start doing it. God, whether that's at Feeding of the 5,000, or nursing home, or the Boys and Girls Club, God, I pray that you would prepare our hearts to go and to do. And prepare us to love on those who don't get loved on. God, I pray that you would be with our community who's struggling and suffering in so many ways. But God, they just need someone to show them that they're loved for more than what they can give back. And so, God, help us to not only do that, but help that to be received by our community. And then, God, for the 1 or 2 or 2 dozen that are out there that are going to get to see our generosity and reconsider Christianity, I pray you surround them with believers that can have the conversation and say, the reason that we do this is because God has done it. not because you can give anything back to us, but we're doing to others because God has already done for us. And now, God, as we enter into this world, I pray that you would help us to be rich in every aspect of our life. Prepare us and prepare our community for a tidal wave of generosity. We love you. We trust you. We praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thank you guys so much. Come next week. Be ready.